Well, welcome once again to Pale Blends and Beyond. Thank you again for joining us today. Today we're talking with Paul Griggs. Paul is an English musician from St. Albans, Hertfordshire. Beginning in 1963, Paul played in his first band, the Cortinas, along with his brother Nigel. The band left us with one single, Phoebe's Flower Shop, in 1968. That same year, the band morphed into Octopus and branched out into more progressive territory while still very much writing songs with strong pop sensibilities. Paul and Nigel were constant members, seeing various lineup changes. Octopus produced a trio of singles and one album, Restless Night. After Octopus called it a day in 1972, Paul was asked to lip sync to a studio band called Kincade in the year 73. From 1974 to 1985, Paul sang in a vocal group called Guys and Dolls. In 1986, Paul became director of Everyday Music, a music publishing company in which he is concentrated on writing and producing. In 2008, Paul published his own memoir, Diary of a Musician. This interview will focus primarily on the early days of the Cortinas and Octopus. Well, welcome, Paul.
Hi, Greg. Nice to hear from you.
Yes, nice to finally see you. We've been emailing back and forth. Exactly. Well, let's start now. Being from St. Albans, I have to ask, did you know any of the Zombies growing up or at any time?
Yes, I knew Colin Blunstone from a very young age because although I was born in St. Albans, I lived in a place called Hatfield where Colin lived. Mm-hmm. And we had mutual friends, and I have a picture of Colin I took with a very cheap camera, which I had my first camera I bought, which cost me £1 2 and 6, which is like $1.25, I think it was. And I wanted to go around and take pictures, and I took a picture of my friends, and Colin Blunstone was there when he was about probably 8. And many years later, I actually I showed him the picture.
Is that right?
But I also knew Rod and Chris quite well, mm-hmm. because we did a demo with them around about 1967. They wanted us to record one of their songs with a view to getting a record deal. And it was one of the tracks from Odyssey and Oracle. Mm-hmm. It's called I Want Her, She Wants Me.
Oh, excellent song.
You know the song, do you?
Yes, the whole album is excellent, yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't really suit. I was the lead singer. It didn't. I've got a copy of it, and it's one of those. It didn't come out well. It wasn't my sort of song to sing. It's a great song. It's a great album, actually. So although we did the demo with Chris and Rod, nothing actually came of it apart from a little demo, which I still have somewhere.
Huh. That's interesting. Okay, well, let's just keep talking about the Zombies for the whole interview.
Yes. Another little useless information about the Zombies is the very first time I ever saw the Beatles. I don't know if I know that you've done very good. Your research is very good, by the way. I actually saw the Beatles live on stage 10 times between 1963 and 1966. And the very first time I saw them was at a place called Luton Odeon. Luton was not far away. And queuing up to get in to see the Beatles, behind us in the queue were the Zombies.
Is that right?
There's just a bit of useless information. There'll be a lot more coming later.
More to look forward to. Okay, well, let's talk about your childhood and growing up there.
Okay, well, I was born in St. Albans, but we moved to Hatfield when I was about 3. This was just after the war, because I was actually born in the war. I was born in 1944 as the war was coming to an end. Mm-hmm. But we moved to Hatfield in 47, 48, and quite a normal childhood, quite a good childhood. My brother was born in 1949. We lived in a little prefabricated bungalow, which they split it up all over the place after the war. They were prefabricated I think they came from Canada, but it was to help the housing problem that the war caused. And we stayed there for about 5 years before we moved to another house in Hatfield. But one of the things that we had in our house, which a lot of houses had in those days, was a piano. Because there was we didn't have a television, we had the radio, but a lot of houses had pianos. And the strange thing about it was, which I only realised recently, that although we had a piano, nobody could play. None of us could play. My mother and father were not musical at all, but we had this piano, and I remember mucking around on it, trying to play things, and couldn't get anywhere. Apart from the fact that I realised that I could work out the national anthem. That if the first note was there, the second note must be there, and by appropriate process of elimination, I managed to sort of do the first probably 6 or 7 notes of the national anthem. But because we had the piano, my mother decided I should go to piano lessons. So I went to a lady called Mrs. Johnson, who lived walking distance from our house, and I had to pay 2 and 6pence, which translated is roughly, oh goodness knows what that is. It's about a quarter, I think, a quarter of a dollar, something like that, for half an hour. And I was made to play 2 pieces every week and scales. And to be honest, I hated it. I absolutely hated it because it was classical music, and I really wasn't into classical music at the time. I was into just whatever I heard on the radio. But we had my favourite piece of music at the time was a piece of music called the Dam Busters March. Now, do you know that?
No.
Well, the Dam Busters was a film made in the 50s, and it was a war film. It was about the bombing of dams in Germany by the RAF. And there was this piece of music called the Dam Busters March. It was a military march done by a guy called Eric Coates. And I thought it was fantastic. And I taught myself to play it on the piano. So I realised at quite an early age I could pick things out. And I really wasn't very interested in listening and looking at the dots and playing these things I had no real interest in. So I eventually gave up piano lessons, and I sort of pounded away. And that was my childhood until around about 1957, when how can I put it? We had a record player, or should I say a gramophone, but it was an old wind-up one. It was one of those you wound up as clockwork. You must have had them over there. It's difficult to know where the technology links in with these, but it was a handle you wound up, and you put the needle on the record, and there was a little sound box above the needle, and the sound came out of the sound box. No electricity at all, and the sound was very tinny and horrible. But one day my father came home with a brand new arm for this record player. You still had to wind it up, but this arm meant you could do away with the little sound box and you could plug it into the radio. So we thought we should get some new records, because all we had was a few old ones. We had things like, do you remember Dinah Shaw, Buttons and Bows?
Yes.
You do remember? Yeah, I think it was in a film, Bob Hope film as well. And we had also a record by Vernon Dalhart called The Runaway Train. Okay. And Vernon Dalhart was a singer from about the 20s. But we had these, so we had to get some new records, and so I bought the Dam Busters March, as was my favourite piece of music. But my mother bought a record called "Don't You Rock Me, Daddy-O" by Lonnie Donegan. Lonnie Donegan. That was my introduction, and pretty soon I was playing the Lonnie Donegan record more than anything, and I just fell in love with the sound. I bought his other records around that time, which was Cumberland Gap and Putting on the Style, and I was hooked, and I just wanted to be Lonnie Donegan.
It was very different from any other type of music too, wasn't it?
It was, because it was skiffle, but I always say I have a little bit of a problem with Lonnie being lumped in with skiffle, because although he did the songs, skiffle was basically you had a T-chest bass, a washboard, and if you're lucky, you had a guitar. And Lonnie was completely different. Where he had electric guitar, he played an acoustic guitar. He had a proper drummer, and he had, because bass players, the bass hadn't come over to England at that time, so he had a double bass player, string bass player. So I also think that there was Lonnie, and then there was Skiffle. They were linked by the material, probably. Right. But I always thought it was Lonnie Donegan and then Skiffle. That's just me. That's just me being pedantic, you know. But it was very different. It was very different, and I just fell in love. I thought it was fantastic, and I just wanted to be Lonnie.
Did you get everything that you could find by Lonnie at that time?
At that time, yes, because his first record was one that was a hit in America. It's called Rock Island Live.
Yes, yes.
And that was a hit in America in 1955, 56. I'm not sure exact time. And I bought that. I went back and bought that, and there was a couple of EPs and a 10-inch album with only 4 tracks on each side. That was it. I just wanted to be Lonnie. That was it.
Well, you mentioned your dad getting that arm to go on the. He was kind of technically inclined, I think. He in fact built your first TV, right?
You do know your stuff, don't you?
I do.
He did indeed. He was actually a woodworker by trade. He worked at a place called de Havilland's in Hertfordshire. He built aircraft. And during the war, they built the Mosquito, which you probably heard of. So, but he did. His finest achievement was he built our television. And, it was amazing, really, because he was a woodworker, but he was that practical generation after the war who could do things. There was a lot of men after the war, because of necessity, were practical. And it came to, we wanted a television. There was about 3 in our street, 3 people in our street had televisions, and we couldn't afford one. So my dad said he's going to build one. And he just really went and bought a book, How to Build a Television. And then he spent every weekend, he'd go to this shop in St Albans, which had war surplus electrical parts, with a little list of parts he needed, and come back with a little bag of parts and solder them all together. And then eventually, I think it was 6 months, maybe longer later, when it was finished, and we had a great big chassis on the table, full of valves, glowing valves, and a little tiny 9-inch screen next to it on the table. And you turn it on for the first time, and we got a picture, and it was so exciting. You know, it's taken for granted today, but it was brilliant. And because he was a woodworker, he made a beautiful wooden cabinet for it, and that was it. And we saw the Queen's coronation in 1952 on my dad's telly, on a little 9-inch screen, you know, which is fantastic. So I thought if he could build a television, a guitar is a piece of cake.
Right.
So I said, Dad, can you build me a guitar? Because I want to be Lonnie Donegan. You know, there's only one person I want to be. And so he did exactly the same thing. He got a book, How to Build a Guitar. And once again, sweating over the table with wood and everything, he built my very first guitar, which I then didn't know how to play. But and I really just tuned it till I thought it sounded okay. And I think I just played the first 3 strings, bashing away. I just wanted to sing Lonnie Donegan songs, so I just bashed away on these 3 strings, playing Lonnie Donegan songs. And then I formed my first band. Well, not formed. It was basically my dad said, if you can get a Skillful group together, you can do a gig at the factory where he works at the children's Christmas party. So I got my brother, who was 8, and a friend from school, and we bashed out 3 Lonnie Donegan songs. And the first gig was on the 4th of January 1958 at de Havilland's, and we did 3 weeks on the trot, doing 3 songs downstairs, 3 songs upstairs for 3 weeks, and we got paid £6. And right? I thought that was amazing, because I thought, this is amazing. I was 13 years of age. I thought at 13 I'm a professional musician. You know, that's it. Doesn't get much better.
Right.
So it was great.
I was going to say that with the TV and the guitar, I think you appreciated it a whole lot more than today. You just go out and buy one. You know?
Absolutely.
You know, it's like having to put one together. You know, I mean, you definitely had an appreciation for it, I think.
Oh, you really did. And I've still got that one I've still got it up in the loft. It's unplayable, broken, but I can't throw it away. It's because it's emotionally, it's it started me on the road to ruin, basically. Or whatever.
What did you call yourself? Did you have a name?
We're called the Satellites, and I've got. I was prepared for this. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but I'll show it to you anyway if I can do this. But it's on my other iPad. But I don't know if you can see that. But that's a picture of the Satellites, and that's me in the middle, and my brother sitting down playing the washboard with drumsticks, and a friend called Colin Hurst playing the tea-chest bass, which I also still have. I still got the bass.
You look like a young Lonnie Donegan there too.
Well, the funny thing about it was, I mean, my sartorial elegance didn't exist, and it was only years later I realised that I was wearing my school uniform for my first gig. So that was ridiculous. But I didn't think about dressing up. I just wanted to play the songs. So it's always interesting.
Well, were there other artists and bands that you liked, let's say in your teens?
I did like the American acts. There was people like the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. No doubt, I was obsessed with Lonnie, but I bought records by them as well, and people like Eddie Cochran as well. I liked Eddie Cochran.
Mm-hmm. Definitely Eddie Cochran. Definitely.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Bless you. What about years later? Well, we'll get to this too, I guess. You actually wrote a song that Lonnie recorded, right?
Yeah, I did. It's probably one of the best.
That was special.
It was absolutely. This was years later. It was after Guys and Dolls, so it was about 1991. I had met Lonnie once when I was with Guys and Dolls. We did a television show with him, and it was great. This was in Scotland in about '77, and I met him, and in fact I shared a taxi with him to the studio, and I just couldn't stop talking, and I knew more about him than he did. I think, and also the fact is Lonnie was one who stretched the truth a little bit, and I'd sometimes correct him, and I'd get told off for correcting him.
Is that right?
But I did, and then in 1991, I think it was, a friend of mine said, "Let's go." And said, "I've got it. I know Lonnie well. He's playing in Hatfield. Do you want to come and see him? He's had a heart attack, but he's doing a half-an-hour spot with Chris Barber." I said, "Oh yeah, I'll come along with you." And that's when I sort of re-met him, and we stayed in touch. And then a few years later, I heard he was doing an album. This was in 1996, I think it was, and I sort of thought I'd send a song off to him. So I sent this song off to him via a friend of his. And I didn't hear anything for a while. And then one day I was sitting in this room, actually, this was his office, sitting in this room, and the phone went, and the voice goes, and I was doing something, I thought I'd let the answer phone kick in. And the voice came in, a voice on the phone saying, "Hello, this is Lonnie Donegan." Picked the phone up straight away. I couldn't believe it. He phoned up and he said he liked the song. And he said, "Could you fax me the lyrics?" It was fax in those days. And so I faxed him the lyrics. Half an hour later, the phone rings again. It's Lonnie. He said, "I like the song." He says, "But I want to go through it. There's one or two lines I'm not crazy about." And he went through it line by line. And there was 4 lines, I think, he didn't like. He said, "Can you change them?" And I said, "No problem." And I put the phone down, and I thought, when you write a song, lyrics take half an hour. I think I laboured for 3 or 4 days over these 4 lines because I wanted him to record my song so much. Then I just faxed them back to him, and I didn't hear a word. And I didn't want to hassle him. I got his telephone number, and I thought I'll leave it a couple of months and see what happens. Nothing happened. He didn't phone. So I thought, well, I'll phone him, and I said, "Oh, Lonnie, it's Paul Griggs. The song I sent you, the new lyrics." He says, "Were they okay?" He said, "What?" He said, "Oh," she said, "Yeah, it's all recorded, it's all done." I thought, He hadn't told me, but he'd recorded it already. So it was all done and dusted. And he then had trouble. He then had trouble releasing it because the record company he was with went bust, and he was left with an album finished and no label. And it took another 3 years before it came out on BMG, I think it was. But I got the CD through, my little song on it with my credit on it and everything. Doesn't get much better than that. No. Because I still he was the guy who started me off, and right. it was his. And I said to him once, Ronnie, it's because of you that I started playing. He said, I get the bloody blame for everything.
Well, how did you like his version of your song? How did you like
it? I wasn't that crazy about it, but he talked the verses instead of singing them, which I didn't really mind, but I thought the track was disjointed and it could have been tighter. That was the only thing. I like the idea. I like what he did, but I thought the track was too loose. It was a bit sloppy in places. But that's just me. I got over that very quickly and realised, he'd recorded my song. What else?
I was going to say, you didn't let him know that.
No.
Well,
I didn't.
Wow. Well, let's talk about Bobby Hale and the Hailstones.
Oh my God.
Does that bring back?
That's a great name. Isn't that a great name?
Yeah.
Well, it was a group I joined. It was the first group I joined after I did the skiffle group thing. I think we only did those 6 gigs at the Albans. That's all we ever did. And then after that, I was did a few gigs on my own for parties and that sort of thing. Nothing very important. But then I thought I'd try and join a group, and I saw this advert in the local paper, rhythm guitarist with vocals wanted for a group. And the 3 guys came around and auditioned me, listened to hear what I could do. Obviously liked what I did, and I joined the group, Bobby Hale and the Hailstones. There was 5 of us, and I always remember there's a lot of arguing in the group. There was a lot of arguing from one of those sort of groups, And I think I was involved in a lot of it as well. There's somebody pointed out to me recently.
Who was Bobby Hale?
Bobby Hale was a guy called Jock. Okay. He's a Scottish guy called Jock, and he was the lead singer. So it was a lead singer and 2 guitars, bass and drums. It was the 5 of us, But we did gigs. We rehearsed and we gigged probably, I can't remember how long. It's probably about 6 to 9 months we were going before I had a huge row with the lead guitarist, and I threw my toys out of the pram and left.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. It was over something silly. It's probably over something very silly. All bands argue over silly things, don't they?
Was a lot of the infighting on the direction of the band that each one wanted to take? Was it kind of?
Well, I can remember having one argument. This is a silly one. This is a silly argument because I just bought myself during the time in the lateral time in the group. I just bought myself a brand new AC30 Vox AC30 amplifier. It was my pride and joy, and I think I bought it on the Friday, and we had a practice on the Monday. And Roy said, "I've got to want to make things easier now. I want to keep all the gear in my van at my house." So he's picking it up all the time. And I've got this brand new gleaming AC30, my pride and joy, that he wanted to keep in his van. And I wasn't having that at all. So that's the sort of thing it was. There was policy of things as well, because Jock had a job, and he was often missing at practices, in which case we'd learn songs, say instrumentals. I'd play a couple of instrumentals and I'd sing a couple of songs on my own. By this time I'd gone away from Lonnie and I'd gone on to a guy called Joe Brown. Do you know Joe Brown and the Brothers?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes. And
I would sing a couple of Joe Brown songs and do a couple of instrumentals. And the lead guitarist and I might sing a couple of Everly Brothers songs. And Jock got a bit fed up because he said, "I'm not singing enough." And we said, "Well, if you turn up to rehearsals, you could, but it's just so it's one of those silly things,
Okay.
But and then it finished. I walked out, and I had a friend I'd known from childhood who was a drummer, and he wasn't in a band. And I phoned him. I said, Roger. I said, this is a guy called Roger Cook. I said, shall we try and? I'm going to form a band. Do you want to be the drummer? So that's how it started. We started off with me and a drummer. That's all there was. That's all there was. And then we got the first. I didn't get my brother in straight away. Right. We had a couple of bass players who came and went quite quickly. We had a girl singer for a very short while who came with her rhythm guitarist boyfriend. And we called ourselves Shalane in the Cortinas. Right. You know this, don't you? Yeah. And that didn't last very long, and they left. And then I got another rhythm guitarist, a guy called Paul Crowland, and I bullied my brother, who was, I think he was 14 at the time, 13 or 14, into buying a bass guitar. Because the bass guitar, this was 63, I think it was, 63. The bass guitar had only been in this country since about 58, 59, because it was only the first bass guitar was a precision bass, the Fender Precision, which I only think came into America about 1951 or 52 or something like that, wasn't it? Okay. And it didn't drift over, and because there was an embargo on American instruments, we couldn't buy Fender in the 50s. They wouldn't allow foreign instruments in. And then a few companies like Hofner, which I'm sure you've heard of, they made one, and a Framus, and it's the one that Bill Wyman had. Great big old Framus star bass, and they were cheap and cheerful. They weren't very expensive. They were about £60, which compared to a Precision, they were very cheap. So I bullied my brother into buying one of these, and I taught him to play, well, just to start off. But he soon picked it up, and that was the group. That was the Cortinas. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because he was more into football, right? Your brother.
Yes.
So how did you talk him into becoming a musician? You know.
I don't know. We often talk about this, and I think he said I was a bit easygoing on lead, and I didn't really mind what I did. He said I think I just thought, well, I'm hurt. But he got into it in a big way, because he became a bass guitarist the rest of his life, you know, a professional bass guitarist. But I taught him, I remember the first number I taught him, the Beatles were out by this time, and the B-side of From Me to You was Thank You Girl. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I taught him was Thank You because you could play it without putting your fingers on the left, using the left hand, apart from one. I think it goes to I think it's in D, and it goes to a B minor. So you had to go to B. But apart from that, you could plonk it away and not do anything. So that's how it kicked off. Just learning to play this B on the fret.
Is that right? So you kind of eased him into it that way.
Eased him into it, yeah. And then before long, we got a set together. We used to do loads of Beatles songs, loads of Beatles songs. We used to end with Twist and Shout, and we had our first booking in Hatfield in a little dance hall called the Cavendish.
Yeah.
Back in 1963.
That's what I was going to ask you about, is some of your memorable gigs with the Cortinas. Well,
there was quite a lot of work around in those days, but they were mostly youth clubs, dance halls. Never played pubs. Never played pubs in those early days at all. So I don't think pubs in those days had realised that could have live music. But memorable ones was probably, we did a place in London. Well, we got invited to do this gig in London, which is 20 miles from where we live. But doing a gig in London was like the Mecca. Doesn't matter where it was. We were playing in London, and we played at the Porchester Hall with Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas, who were one of the Epstein's groups. Mm-hmm. And we also did another one at Battersea College with Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames. Mm-hmm. And that was the week they got to #1 with Yeah Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we thought that was brilliant, supporting an act like that. It was fantastic.
Right. Well, they could really rock out too at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were good. What about your residency at the Hilltop?
Oh, that's right. No, that's where I've just proved myself wrong again, because that was a pub, but it wasn't really a pub because it was a hall. It was linked to the pub. It was a hall. It was a function hall next to the joined onto the pub. And every Sunday night they used to do a variety show. They'd have a couple of acts on, a comedian, maybe another singer, and we would open and close the show. And we did that for a long, long time. That was good. That was good. It was a good time. And we always used to have this thing about when the Beatles had a new record out. If it came out on a Friday, we'd do it at the Hilltop on the Sunday. So we frantically learn it, and do it.
Do it that quick. Yeah.
If we could, if possible, yeah.
Well,
I was obsessed. I was Beatles obsessed, no doubt about it.
Beatles and Lonnie and Beatles.
That's it. Yeah. If you put me in a desert island with all Lonnie's records and the Beatles records, I think I'd probably be happy.
You'd be happy.
Yeah.
Well, your parents were involved too at this time. Your mom was the band's manager.
She was.
And so it's kind of a all in the family kind of thing. And your dad would drive you from gig to gig, right?
That is correct. That's correct. We had an old, what did we have? An old Austin van Dad bought just to do it. They were very supportive, my parents, because we were, we were both in the group, and they were so supportive. And Mum used to get all the gigs, and she was quite fearsome as a manager. We had these agents who would, oh God, Mrs. Griggs is phoning up. It's got, that's good. So she was quite fearsome, and my dad was great, and he built a lot of our, because he was a woodworker, he did build a lot of our cabinets, because PAs, when we first started the Cortinas in '63, there really weren't many PA systems on sale in those days. The Vox hadn't come out, and Selma, Vox and Selma were the first two that came out, and they weren't around. So my dad built us 2 2x12 speakers, and we had an amplifier by a company called Vortexian, who was who built a sort of chassis thing. It was on handles with 3 inputs, with 3 mics, because we had 3 vocalists. And that was it. He drove us around to all the gigs, built the gear.
Well, it was definitely kind of an all in the family. That's great that they were so supportive, because you hear about so many parents that try to talk their kids out of it.
Oh yeah.
You want a proper job. You don't want to go into music. So that was.
Yes, it's funny because I don't think we thought about doing it professionally when we were semi-pro. We both had jobs in the civil service. Mm-hmm. I started off working in a bank, and it was so late finishing. I never knew I was going to get away because you finish when the books were balanced at the bank, and if you had a bad day, you could be very late, and so you never knew what time you were going to leave. Mm. So then I worked in the civil service, and funny enough, I worked in the income tax, and my brother worked in social security, the same building, just a different part of it. Mm-hmm. So we were there, and we finished at 5 o'clock. So if we had a gig, we'd be off to a gig, and back in again in the morning. And it was great. It was great. It was great fun. Great fun.
So you had a way of balancing the music and the work at that time.
I was more interested in the music than I was in the work. Really couldn't see myself. I mean, it's funny because when I left the bank, I left because as I say, I was leaving so late, and it was quite a big deal me leaving, because my boss, who was the manager of the bank, came up to me and said, "Why are you leaving?" I said, "This is such a good job." He said, "Do you realise you could be, if you stayed in the bank, you could be a bank manager in 20 years' time?" Mm-hmm. And I thought, what a scary thought.
What is it? One man's meat is another man's what is I don't
poison.
Yes.
Yes. Poison. Yeah.
That's it.
No, I didn't like it at all. But then we decided we'd have a go trying to be in '67. We decided we'd try going professional.
Right, on your brother's birthday, right?
That's, you really have done your homework. Where did you get all this information from? Yeah,
I have to do that. Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
talk about your first foray into a recording studio. How'd that go?
The very first one was early days. It was 63 or 64. You tell me. I think it was 64. I think it was 64. We've been going a short while, and we thought we wanted to go into a studio to make a demo, and try and get a record deal. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who put us onto this place, but it turned out to be a very famous studio, a little tiny studio, not a great deal bigger than this room here, probably about twice or two or three times the size. But it was in Denmark Street, which is Timpan Alley, and it was very primitive, but it's where the Stones recorded their first album and their first records. Really? And we went in there on a Saturday afternoon. I think we paid 10 quid or something, £10 to do 2 tracks. And because the Beatles influence, there was a program in England called Pop Go the Beatles, which was on every week. They used to do this half-hour show every week. And they used to play lots and lots of songs that they used to do in the old days in Hamburg, which they never recorded. So we thought, look at the thinking, and these are great songs. Some of these songs are great. So we picked 2 songs from what the Beatles used to do live and recorded them. One was called I'm Sure to Fall, which I think was a Carl Perkins song. And the other one was called Clarabella, which was, I can't remember the name of the group, it's an obscure group. And we went in and did it, and I think we had about an hour when we did it, and we came out with this little record, which I also still have because I'm a hoarder. I hoard things. But nothing came of it. But we thought it was quite something, recording in Denmark Street in London. It was quite prestigious, although it was a really crappy studio. It really had the egg boxes on the wall and everything. It really was very primitive. That kind. But a lot of things come out of that, and you look on the websites now. It's sort of classed as legendary, which it was really, because the Stones did their early stuff there. Yeah, isn't that something? Well, in early '65, you almost joined Tony Rivers and the Castaways. I did. Talk a little bit about that. Well, Tony was how I met Tony. Well, I didn't actually meet him, but there's a holiday camps in England called Butlins, which you've probably heard of. You heard of Butlins holiday camps? And I used to go. I went to, I think it's 1960, before the Cortinas, and there was a talent contest, 2 talent contests there. And I went in for the talent contest. And I think I won a week's holiday, and in one, and I won 50 cigarettes in the other one, which I didn't smoke, so I gave to my dad. But there was where you sat for your meals was right by where the food was made, and the chefs were all there invisible, where you can see them. And this guy was there. I didn't know who he was, but he was one of the chefs. 2 years later, or a year later, no, it might have been 2 or 3 years later, when the Cortinas were going, I went down to my local youth club to see this group, Tony Rivers and the Castaways. Thought they were very good. And I'm sitting there in my youth club, and the curtains open, and I'm going, "That's my waiter from Butlins." And it was, and I went and spoke to him afterwards. And he remembered me from Butlins because he was into music. He used to go to lots of talent contests and everything. And he remembered me being in the talent contest. And we became lifelong friends, and we're still friends to this day, Right. And our paths crossed so many times. And once when he had a bad accident, lost his drummer, and his drummer got killed in a car crash, and the guitarist was seriously injured. He was looking for around about that time, I was looking for a new guitarist, and he asked me to join them. And I seriously thought about it, but I think I was too scared to take the leap. And I did like having my own group. And I was semi-pro then. I had a job, and I think I was a bit conscious of that. So at the time, I said, no, thank you. You know, it's just
Right.
so it didn't happen. Would have been good because they were a great band. I don't know if you ever heard any of their stuff, but they're great.
Great harmonies. Great harmony.
Great harmony band, yes. And the funny thing about it was, going forward a little bit, when we did get a record deal in '67, we got signed to Polydor, and we recorded this song called "I Can Guarantee You Love."
Mm-hmm.
We thought that was going to be our single, and our record producer said, after it was finished, we had about a week or two later, our producer came along and said, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to pick another song because Tony Rivers is just signed to the label and he likes that song so much. And obviously he had more prestige than we did. So he got first dibs on it. So he nicked our song. I never let him forget that either as well. But we did another song called Phoebe's Flower Shop,
yes.
which I'm sure you heard of. It's a very funny title, but it was the flower power time. So anything with flower in it was supposed to be good. Yeah. Which didn't do anything, sold about 30 copies, but neither did Tony's song, didn't become a hit either. So
okay. Well, speaking of, I wanted to show you this. I picked this up recently. Speaking of harmony pop, do you see that? Do you remember?
Cymbeline, yes.
And
I can remember Cymbeline. I don't remember the Gibsons.
Right. I don't remember the Gibsons either, but it's like a battle of the harmony bands.
Is it really?
That's what they called it.
I remember Cymbeline. Yeah. I don't remember the songs, but I remember the band. Yeah.
The band, yeah. Well, yeah. Talk about you mentioned the gig with Georgie Fame. Talk about. I want to hear about this one. Screaming Lord Such. What an act!
What an act! Oh, it was a great act. It was a great act with a bunch of lunatics. I'm sure he wasn't quite right, Screaming Lord Such, but we played with them at in Hitchin. It's not too far. It's about 10 miles north of here, and it was a place called the Hermitage Ballroom. It's one of the gigs that was on the circuit, you know, in those days. And we got there, and there was three of the band, the rhythm section of the band, which is the drummer, bass player, and the guitarist, were rehearsing or just doodling around. They were playing a thing called Chasse. Okay. Now, the Chasse is a very fast piece of music, which was done by a band called Nero and the Gladiators in 1961. Right. And I'd heard that, and yeah. It's brilliant because, and I learned to play it. I actually learned to play it because any instrumental that came along, I'd try and play it just for my own amusement. Not until I didn't ever gigged it, I don't think. But it's got a fast bit at the end. It goes dun bum 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 like that. So I learned to play it, and they were playing that down, you know, and I was so impressed because this guitarist, he could play it note for note. It was brilliant. And it was only later I found out it was Ritchie Blackmore. Ritchie Blackmore. Yeah. I read that recently. I had no idea he played with Screaming Lord Such. Yeah. You know, I knew he was in what was the instrumental band? The Outlaws. He was in the Outlaws. Yes, yeah. I knew that, but I didn't know that he was in Screaming Lord Such. Yeah. Wow. But anyway, it was a good gig. It was an enjoyable gig. It was amazing. He's a real lunatic. He used to do a thing called Jack the Ripper, where he used to pretend one of the band used to dress up as a girl, and he used to pretend to kill her, and then pull out all her entrails and everything. It was really, you know, gruesome stuff. And he used to come on. He used to have a long, because there was no mic, there was no radio mics in those days. He used to have a long, huge, about a 50-foot lead into the dressing room, and the band would be on the rhythm section would be on the stage playing the intro when he walks on, and he'd play it, and then he'd walk out singing Ripper, Jack the Ripper, with two sax players behind him walking on the stage. It was cutting edge stuff in those days, you know, it really was. I mean, he was great days. Quite the showman, quite the showman. Oh, he really was, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, talk about, you may have mentioned this earlier, the Road Center in Bishop's Stortford. Yes. Any memorable shows there? Yeah, quite a few. It was a run by a guy called Alan Goldsmith, who is still involved in the area, doing something completely different now. But he used to run the Red Centre, and he always had it was always a big name on. So we always played with a big name, and we played from memory with Lee Dorsey, working in a coal, working in a coal mine, wasn't it? The Easy Beats from Australia, Friday on My Mind. Dave D, Dozy, Big Mick and Titch, we played with them, and Billy Fury.
Okay.
And the Billy Fury memory is my dad was the roadie, as we said, he was driving us around, and we never let my dad forget that at the end of the show, Billy Fury was walking out. He said, "Good night, all," and my dad says, "Good night, Bill," as if it's his oldest friend in the world. And it's just so funny that my brother and I never forgot it, never forgot. And we often used to say it to him when we saw him, "Good night, Bill." It was just a little in-joke thing, but.
Yeah, it's sad of his passing so early in life.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because he was one of the first singer-writers, really, wasn't he? He wrote a lot of his own stuff.
Yes. Well, I gotta hear about this too. Details. The end of '66, you were to open for Cream. Why did that show turn out to be such a nightmare?
It really was. Well, I mean, when we knew we were playing with them, we got really excited. It was a place called the Hemel Hempstead Pavilion, another one of the gigs on the circuit, and obviously with support. And the thing is, if you're supporting Cream, you've got 1,000 people out there who want to see Cream. They don't want to see the Cortinas. So we got on the stage, and I can always remember it's a very wide stage, and Ginger Baker, his drums, was set in right in the middle, quite near the front, and we were the support band, so we had to set up around him. That's where he was set, and it was an awful gig. It was get off, we want Cream, go on, get off. And we finished our set, and we also thank God that's over. And we walked off the stage, and as we walked off the stage, and the manager of the hall comes up, he says, "Sorry, boys, I've got Ginger Baker downstairs. He's a bit the worse for wear at present. We're feeding him coffee, but you're gonna have to go on and do another half hour." We said, "You are joking." And not only that, I had to explain to the audience that we were playing another half hour, and Cream would be coming on shortly, which went down very well. You can imagine, can't you? Yeah. Get off. But anyway, we kept. And now I'd like to sing. And now I'd like to sing this. And I kept looking over my shoulder, going, "Please, give us a signal." And eventually, we got the sign. Said, "Yeah, they're ready. They're ready." So we walked off stage, and there was stairs down to the dressing room. As we come off stage, there was Eric Clapton walked up, followed by Jack Bruce, followed by two guys carrying Ginger Baker, one on each arm. And he's going, "Where's the effing stage, man?" and it was just amazing. But these two guys virtually carried him to put him on his drum stool, and they started playing, and he was fine. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's all in there. He might have been, legs wouldn't work properly, but the old brain could still play the things. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But it wasn't. It's good to say, "Oh yeah, I played with Cream," but when you look back at the memory, it's it wasn't great. But
that's a good story. That's a good story. Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier we talked about turning professional, and that was on your brother's birthday when he turned 18.
That's right.
Okay.
1967. Yeah.
67.
Yeah.
What about after that point? Who was Graham D, and how was he instrumental in getting the band a contract? Right.
Well, we turned pro on August the 18th, 1967, and it basically meant we gave up our jobs and we stayed in bed till 11 o'clock. No, as all good musicians do, you know.
Right.
But we started doing gigs farther afield, because when we were semi-pro, we were very limited because we had to go to work the following day. So we were very limited to how far we could travel. But as soon as we turned pro, we were able to go much farther afield. And, you know, there was a lot of work there. We got signed up with agents did a lot of work around Nottingham and Sheffield, around there. But there was a lot of work. And I can't say we starved. We never made it big or anything, but it was a good living. There was so much work around. But one day we were doing an audition to get on the Mecca ballroom circuit, which was a circuit of ballrooms around England. Mm-hmm. And we went to this place in London called it was the Lyceum. Well, you've heard of the Lyceum.
Yeah.
It was the Lyceum Ballroom. We did an audition for Mecca ballrooms. But while we were there, we'd seen this guy, we'd set up, we could see this peculiar looking guy who was lurking in the background, and he was sort of walking around and it looked a bit strange. And after we'd finished playing, he came up to us and said, you had a terrible stutter. It was Graham. He said, my name's Graham D. He said, and I think you're a great band. He said, I'd like to, if you'd come and do a recording test for Polydor Records, who I work for. So we said, oh, fantastic, you know, this is what we want, you know. So we ended up doing this recording test at the little 4-track studio that they had in London. Great little studio. And we did 4 songs. And I can even remember, one was Happy Together, the Turtles song. One was Baby, I Need Your Loving. Was that Temptations, I think? Temptations. Another one, and Bye Bye Baby.
Okay.
Bye Bye Baby. So we did did 4 songs. I can't remember the other one. And lo and behold, Graham submitted to the powers that be, and we got a recording deal, which was for 1 record with options, 1 single with options. And that's how we recorded initially, as I've already said to you, that the song I Can Guarantee You Love, which Tony Rivers nicked off us. Mm-hmm. So we did this on Phoebe's Flower Shop. Mm-hmm. As I say, it came out, sold about 30 copies and disappeared. Had two plays on, only 2 plays on Radio 1. Unless you got your record played on Radio 1, you didn't get a hit in those days. So and that was it. And after that, I think Graham left Polydor, so we got dropped anyway. It was only on option, so we got dropped. So that was our first foray into recording.
Well, did you think the song had more potential though than what played out?
Not really. We weren't crazy about the song. Have you heard it? I expect you've heard it. Have you? Yes. And the awful thing was, I didn't play on it. This is the Ringo Starr syndrome. This was. Graham wrote the song, and he was a guitarist. He said, don't worry, I'll play on this. And he had a drummer, and my brother played on it, and a keyboard player who they got in, I think, and Graham D did the backing track. So I didn't play on it. So I was totally miffed. So I know exactly how Ringo felt, you know. I love him to do. But no, I never thought it was a great song. And the chorus was in falsetto, which was it was all right, you know. What did you think? Go on, be honest.
Yeah,
be brutal.
I have to agree with you. Yeah, it's not one that really sticks with you for very long.
No, not at all.
No. Well, in 1968, you started playing at more reputable clubs. What was it like playing at the Marquee Club in London? I mean, that was a hot spot.
Fantastic. Absolutely loved playing the Marquee.
I have to ask you about this. So the club didn't have a liquor license at the time. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
This is hard for me to understand, and maybe a lot of people. People would actually go to the live show sober, and they would enjoy the music without the aid of alcohol.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. That's right. It's right. There there was a bar next door just called the Chasse.
Okay.
And there's ships. So there's plenty of pubs around. So if you wanted to go out in the interval, you don't want to see that, you can go get tanked up quite easily outside with a pass out. But no, it was run by a guy called John G, who was so out of place in the Marquee Club because he used to wear a suit and a tie. And this was 68, and everybody was caftans and hippies and everything, long hair. And he'd come on stage, and there would be two bands on at the Marquee, support band with two spots, and the main actor do two spots. At the end of each set, he'd say, "Oh, right, ladies and gentlemen, there'll be a short break while we change over. You can go to the back and buy Coca-Cola and Mars bars."
I love that.
He did it every week, you know. It was great, but it was just a lovely place to play. It was a nice venue. It wasn't big by any means; it was quite a small venue, but it had atmosphere to it, which was great. And as you say, there was no bar. I think the bar went in after we'd stopped playing there. I think 69. I think it went in, but there was no bar when we played there. But we played there with various acts. The first time we played with a band called Time Box. Yes. Some of these names are just names from the 60s who you may know of. Procession was another one. And of course, Yes. We played with Yes twice in the very, very early days. And we were so impressed that it really sort of kicked us off to sort of have a think about where we were going musically. It was the time before they made the first album even, and they were just great. And the lineup was before Steve Howe joined. It was Pete Banks. Yeah. The lead guitarist was Pete Banks, and Tony Kaye on organ before Rick Wakeman took over. And we just used to, even when after we played them, we used to go and see them every week because they had residency there. I just thought they were tremendous, and I thought they were better. They were better in the early days than when they got. I think they got for me, they got too profound. They did their first album, which was really almost their stage act they were doing at the time. Then they did an album called Time and a Word, which is good. Right,
I was going to mention that. That's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. It's a good album. It's a good album. Yeah. And then they did Yes album, and then they did Fragiles next, if I'm not mistaken. But then they did Close to the Edge, and I thought, for me, they started going over the edge. And that's just for me. I mean, a lot of people still liked them, but I just it went too far into the realms of I don't know, great big long half-hour epics and that sort of thing. Right. And it was just too much for me,
too much noodling, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
But the early stuff was wonderful. As I say, and now, as you say, Time and a Word, great song. It's a great song, that Time and a Word.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Well, so they definitely had an influence on your direction going forward. What about one more gig? Have to hear about one of your oddest shows. You probably know what I'm going to talk about at the psychiatric hospital.
Oh, yes.
What?
Yes.
Why were you booked there to begin with?
That's a good question. No, it was basically, we had an agent in Nottingham who booked acts for this venue. It was called Rampton Hospital, which was for quite a severe mental hospital, a very heavy mental hospital. And the reason we were booked is because it was on the list. You say Rampton Hospital was in the article. Oh, Rampton Hospital. And they said, and they did tell us it was a mental hospital. We thought, oh, that's okay. But it was one of the strangest gigs we ever did, I think, because we got there and we had to load all the gear onto two trolleys. And then every time we went through a door, it was locked behind us. Then we had to go to the next door and then open that and then go through. And then we came to the stage, and there was the door to the side of the stage. We put all the gear on the stage. Then they locked us on the stage.
Right.
And then there were curtains there, And when the curtains opened, there were women there. Women were on one side and men were on the other. And there were some really hard, very severe mental cases in there. You know, we're going, "Get your haircut," and all that sort of thing. You know, we did it. I think they clapped, you know, but it was just weird, just really, really strange. Can't say it's you know, one of the best things we ever did. Well, but as I say, it's when you're in this business doing gigs, you sometimes don't know what's coming next, you know. And I think I've played every strange gig there is in the world. I think.
I was going to say that it may have been similar to some of your other concerts because there were a lot of mental fans out there, weren't they? You know,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Going to concerts, right? Or
yes.
Especially once they get tanked up, you know. Maybe they should have been in a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, yes, you could be right. You know, you could be right. But as I say, it was just one of the ones jotted down. You know, another one, tick it off. Mental hospital. We've done that.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah.
You know what would have really been wild is like to have an album that came out, you know, live from
like from Rampton Hospital, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That would be good.
Oh,
yeah, it was quite something. That was quite something.
Sorry to laugh so much.
Never to be forgotten.
Towards the end of '68, the band's name was changed to Octopus. Whose idea was this, and where did the name come from?
Well, the Cortinas was named after the car. It was an English car called Ford Cortina, and there were a lot of car group names around. But by '68, it had all changed, and it had got different. You know, it was old hat. It was very old hat. So we thought about a new name, threw a few ideas around, and I think I came up with Octopussy because I'd read James Bond book for the film Octopussy, and we thought maybe a bit I don't know. So we just changed it to Octopus, and that was it. It was as simple as that, really.
Well, what you could, if you had 4 more members in the band, you know, if you had 8 members, that would make sense. Octopus, right? But
we did have 4 in the band. We did have 8 arms.
Right. There you go. There you go. That's true. Very true.
That's probably going to be one of the Beatles albums, wasn't it? 8 Arms to Hold You at one point. One of those.
Right. Right. Okay. At the end of '68, you supported the band Plastic Penny.
Yes.
Where bass player Tony Murray must have liked what he heard, right?
Yeah.
What happened next?
Well, once again, we did a show with them, and him and a guy called Paul Raymond, who was the keyboard player, they came up to us afterwards and saying, would you be interested in, they were songwriters, they got songs. Would you be interested in recording a couple of our songs with and try and get you a record deal? And we said, obviously, yes, fantastic, you know, fabulous. So we ended up going to Dick James's office. They were signed to Dick James, who was the Beatles publisher. And he had a studio there. We recorded 2 of their songs. One was called Night into Day, and the other was called, can't remember. But it was a good session. It came out well. And we left it up to them then to try and get us a record deal. But another little thing which you may know about during that session, or one of the visits to Dick James, I think this was before, we were actually going up one day to check out some songs. We'd check out the songs. And when we finished, we were just about to leave, and this little guy comes up to me and he says, I've got some songs. Can I give you this? And he was a little short guy, rather stocky with glasses. We recognised he was one of the people. This was around Soho. He worked in a record shop, and he was. You know how you see somebody long enough, you recognise them, even if you don't speak to them. And he worked in this record shop, so I sort of half recognised him. And I picked the record up, and the record said the song was called "When I Was Chilby Abbey" by Elton John, and it was Elton John.
Elton John.
Yeah.
Wow. Reg Dwight. I guess he went by Reg Dwight.
Yeah, but the funny thing is about it, Elton's autobiography came out a couple of years ago, and it's mentioned in the autobiography, which I thought was great. So people started telling me you're in there, you're Octopus, weren't you? And it basically was a time when they were trying to get songs to people, and the actual quote in the book said, we couldn't get arrested with our songs. He said Cliff Richard turned us down, Cilla Black turned us down, and Octopus turned us down. And then he said, who the hell are Octopus? But we got mentioned.
But you're mentioned anyway.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Oh, that's something.
Yeah.
Well, so enter Larry Page.
Yes.
Right.
Larry Page liked what he heard, and offered us a record deal. And we went in. This is after my brother had started writing songs, and we had a song called "Laugh at the Poor Man." I think this is the way it went. Yes, it is the way it went. "Laugh at the Poor Man," and it was a little bit. The Yes influence was there a little bit, and we said we'd like to record that, and a song called "Girlfriend," which was just a little pop song. But Larry wanted to do this other song that was run by one of his writers. I can't remember I think it was by a guy called Peter Lee Sterling, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the title. But we went in and did 3 songs, and Larry liked what he heard, and he picked "Laugh at the Poor Man" to be our next single. Our first single with his label Penny Farthing Records.
Yeah, Penny Farthing.
He was just starting off. And so it came out, and I have to say, once again, it's sung without trace. You know, it's
right.
It got a few plays on Radio 1, but once again, not enough to do anything.
Well, Larry Page had his fingers in a lot of different pies.
He certainly did.
He had a couple of labels. One of my interviews not too long ago with Pete Hodge was with Dulcimer. Do you remember Dulcimer?
I remember the name. I do remember the name, yes.
Soft folk type.
Yes.
Trio. Nepenthe label was one of Larry's too.
That's right. It was. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
On that one. So it's interesting doing these interviews, the connections, you know, and the interweaving, and then
absolutely.
You played with this guy, and that you knew this guy managed you. It's like that's interesting to me to start making those connections too.
Yeah.
So you recorded at Chapel Studios. Do you remember anything from that recording those sessions?
I don't remember Chapel.
That's where you Laugh at the Poor Man and Girlfriend.
I don't remember, because what I remember most about recording with Larry is that we did all the rest of our recordings in Radio Luxembourg studios. Chapel, I've got a vague recollection of it, but I can't remember it much.
Right. Radio Luxembourg, there's another connection there. The Fresh Maggots, which I just talked to, Mick Burgoyne. Mick Burgoyne was in that band. And when I heard the name, I thought it was like a heavy metal band or something. But no, it was another folk rock group.
Oh, really?
But they recorded it at Radio Luxembourg too. So there's another one. It's like, wow, okay, another one. But what I like is picking up and Laugh at the Poor Man, Ravel's Bolero.
Yes.
And the guitar.
That was me, because it was just a piece of music. I love the piece of music. I still to this day, I think it's a great piece of music. I just thought it was an excuse to get it in, you know.
Right.
Just a little bit of Ravel's Bolero,
Yeah. So I picked up on that. I'm sure other fans have too. Were you surprised by the positive reviews of the single?
I can't remember if were they positive. You obviously know more than I do. I think.
Supposedly.
I think they did. No, it did go down. No, we did get some good reviews, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a good idea, good track. It was a good track for our first thing, and we were sort of morphing a little bit away from just being a pop band.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting thing to do. But it's a shame, I didn't do anything. But that's life.
That's life. You know, Nigel did write the majority of the material for Octopus. Did he have an interest in writing early on? Do you remember that in school? Did he like to write or?
Yes, he was always very good at English. So he used to write stories and that. And I think he wrote loads of songs before, he just kept saying, I've written another one. He wrote loads of them in his room. He learned to play the guitar, the proper, acoustic guitar, and just used to write songs and record them. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot. And I think that was well before we probably before Octopus even. Mm-hmm. So he's always interested in writing.
Yeah, well, good. How's he doing these days?
He's fine. He lives in Australia. Mm-hmm. I expect he was in the band Split Ends. Mm-hmm. I think you said that earlier, yeah. Who don't play anymore. Last time they got together was, I think, 2006. Or was it something around there. They did a benefit. They got together for one of the benefits for the fires when they had all the bad fires in around Melbourne. He did a concert at the Melbourne Cricket Ground with the band, and some of it. They still sound fantastic. I love the band. I always loved them. Okay. Oh, yeah. And I went my way into Guys and Dolls, and I was always envious of Nigel being in Split Ends. Yeah.
Did you ever talk to him about all the makeup that they would put on?
Yeah. Because he didn't. He was easygoing. He was very easygoing. He said, "I didn't mind it at all," and he said, "We just did it." But we had a guitarist, Rick Williams, who was in the band, and I think he was also up for possibly being the lead guitarist. But he said, "I'm not going for it, so I can't do the makeup." He said, "I can't do it." And in the end, he went to Neil Finn, who was Tim Finn's younger brother, and actually Neil joined the band the same day as my brother, because they came over here to England and they lived not far away near Watford. Mm-hmm. And I think two members left and they almost broke up. But the funny, there's another little connection. The Octopus drummer, Malcolm Green, was in the band.
Right.
And he got my brother in. He got my brother to come and audition.
Right.
And funny, it was the same day that I actually got engaged, because we were having a drink round my parents' house with Nigel and my wife to be. And Nigel always says, I barely had a champagne got to my lips, but the phone went, and it was Malcolm saying, "Can you come down to London now for an audition for this band, Split Ends?" So he said, "Thank you," drank the champagne and went off to do Split Ends. And as I say, he got the job, and then Tim Finn called over Neil from Australia. And I think he was 16 or something, very young at the time, and couldn't really play very well. But got his brother in. And Neil Finn always used to say that I wasn't in the mix for the first year.
The first year. That's something. Well, let's go back a little bit to what was it like playing on Portuguese TV with Samantha Jones?
It was the first time that we ever went abroad. I think we had to get passports and everything, because suddenly Larry Page says, "We got your television appearance in Portugal." Doing 3 songs, I think it was. And there were songs that don't exist. I don't even remember what they were, but we'd done some demos for Larry Page. This is before we got seriously into recording. And we had these 3 songs, which Larry says, "You better do those in Portugal for Portuguese television." So we got on a plane. First time I've been on a plane. First flight ever. It was a Boeing 727, one of the old Boeing 727s. And flew over to Portugal with another of his artists, a girl called Samantha Jones.
Samantha Jones, yeah.
Yeah. And we did this show. Oh, we just thought it was all fantastic. You know, I mean, on a plane, you know, young guys on a plane. We haven't been on a plane before, you know. And it was funny because also on the plane, this won't mean much to you because this is a soccer thing. There's a guy called Tommy Docherty, who was he was manager of Manchester United in over here one time, but he was on the plane going to a club in Porto, and he was sitting in front of us at the same time. But as I say, probably doesn't mean anything to you because you don't know the name. That was good. It was good. We did the show, and we went out shopping. I bought a pair of Portuguese boots. You know, and
okay.
That was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Just as I say, it was all so new to us, going on a plane and being on television. Fabulous. Yeah, very exciting.
I like speaking of Samantha, her song "I Deserve It." You familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Has that Phil Spector kind of production sound.
Okay.
It wasn't Phil that produced it, but it's got that kind of wall of sound. Really
Yeah.
Nice track. But that's interesting. Did the audience respond real well?
It was just there was no audience. It was just a studio thing. Just a studio thing. We just went in. I think they did 3 different backgrounds. We might have done one outside and one here, but there was no audience. It was just it wasn't live. It was a lip sync playback, you know.
Okay.
So it's a long time ago.
Wow.
But as I say, great fun. I can also remember walking down the street who had long hair. And I think it was quite unusual in Portugal because I remember this lorry going past a load of builders. They go, Beatles, it's the Beatles. So, okay, I'll take that.
Well, they were complimenting you, yeah. You know.
I think they were anyway.
Yeah. So your second single, "The River," was inspired by canned heat. Explain that.
It was. Well, we had sort of a conflict of styles, I think, because Nigel came up with this song, "The River," and it was a derivative of canned heat. In our heads, it may not be to anybody else, I don't know, but it was to us. It was derived from canned heat, and we went into Luxembourg Studios. We recorded it in 2 hours. It's a very simple song, just a rock song, and we had a great drummer at that time, a guy called Brian Glasgow, fabulous drummer, and we just went in and did it. You know, it was so quick. And we came back, and Larry, actually, I think we got a rough mix and came back to the Larry's office, and he loved it. You know, he said, "Oh, it's next single, no problem at all." And he really tried with that record. He really did try. We had power plays on Radio Luxembourg, but once again, we couldn't break into Radio 1. It was just so difficult. That was the big deal. That was the big problem.
Right. So
it wasn't a hit, although it was a hit in Italy. I'm not sure. I can't remember how many, but we did actually do a New Year's Eve television broadcast in Italy, which was a mad night, if I remember rightly.
In Pisa.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Did you see the Leaning Tower?
Well, yes, we did. Only from a distance on the train. On the train the following morning, we had to get the train back to Milan to catch a flight. It was snow everywhere. We thought we were going to have trouble getting back. And we came out of the station, and I could see the Leaning Tower about half a mile away. So I will say, yes, I saw it, but not that close. But many years later, I saw it properly. And did the bit, you know, did the pose.
Yeah, you have to do that.
You have to do that.
You have to do that. Well, talk about the German Music Festival, and why did your equipment not make the trip?
Well, that was another little error on the part of somebody, because they said, "Oh, we've got you this love-in." You know, it's what they were called in those days. Love-in. It's just a festival in Dusseldorf, All the bands are going on the plane together, and you don't have to take your gear with you. So don't worry, you haven't got to take your gear with you. So we get on the plane, and we look out down below, and we see all these cabinets going on. Loads of them going into the hold. And I thought it's a bit odd, we should have taken our gear.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, when we got there, we found out with the representative from Penny Farthing Records that we should have taken our gear with us. And we hadn't got any gear. We got our guitars. We thought they were supplying the amps, but they weren't. So we had to beg, borrow, and in the end, we borrowed Status Quo's back line. And went on did our spot, in the afternoon.
So they were.
But
cool.
it was. Sorry.
So Status Quo was cool with that. You borrowed.
Oh yeah, absolutely no problem at all. They were great, and I've got to say, out of everybody, they went down the best.
Mm-hmm.
They just become the rock and roll band, at that time, as they turned into, and they were so good. Went down strong.
Who else was on the festival?
Love Affair, Humble Pie, which was Steve Marriott and Peter Frampton, and Ginger Baker's Air Force.
Okay, right.
And because I can remember there was a bit of argy-bargy towards the end, because Humble Pie were overrunning time and a bit, and Ginger Baker was sitting up there getting a bit annoyed, and he started playing his drums over him. And Marriott says, that up there thinks he's going to get us off before we're finished. He's mistaken.
Okay.
Good old rock and roll vibes, everything. Usual stuff. And then we all, after the show, we had drinks half the night. We had to catch a flight back, which was a chartered flight, about 8 o'clock in the morning. So it was a very quiet flight home, with full of really, out of it musicians,
I can imagine that. Well,
that was good fun as well, It was
you
good
got
fun.
to socialize a little bit with them.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
and you get a bit starstruck when you see these people as well,
Mm-hmm. Well, not right after, but soon after, why did Brian Glasscock leave the band, and then Rick?
Well, usual internal squabbles. We'd recorded probably about 3 or 4 tracks for our potential album. We'd already done 3 or 4 tracks, and they tended to be the rocky tracks, the more rocky tracks. Rick, we could see, was getting dissatisfied, and I think he wanted to be, I was lead guitarist, I think he wanted to be lead guitarist. And there was bad atmosphere in the group. And Brian, he'd married an American girl. I can't remember the time.
Oh,
time frame of this.
That was his downfall right there.
Yes,
an American girl.
And it's such a shame, because Brian was the best drummer. I always had a thing about drummers. And Brian was the best drummer by far that we ever had. He was a great, great drummer, rock solid, and in a little bit John Bonham-ish in a way. Heavy drum. He's a heavy drummer, but didn't play unnecessary fills, which I always hated. I hated fiddly drummers.
Right.
But he was great, and so he wanted to, and I think he was offered. That's right. He was offered a job in a band called Tofat.
Okay.
And Tofat was Cliff Bennett, a guy called Cliff Bennett. And they got a tour coming out with Eric Clapton, with Derek and the Dominoes. They were supporting him in America. So he wanted to leave. And I think we said to Rick, I think it's not working out. I think you should leave. I think, we almost kicked it. It was almost fired, really. So we ended up with half an album, and just a 2-man, the Griggs brothers, left. That's all we were left. So we had to have a route round. But we'd seen the keyboard player. We had this guy, Johnny Cook, who was in a rival local band. And he'd got a very unusual Wurlitzer organ. which is quite unusual. This is pre all the keyboards that came out later. There weren't many keyboards about. There was Hammonds and a few others, and he had this quite unique organ, and he was a brilliant player. And we persuaded him. His band had just broken up, and we persuaded him to join us. So we were pro and everything. We want to go pro, and then we did the usual audition thing, audition drummers. We auditioned about 50 drummers, and eventually found this guy called Malcolm Green. And then we kicked off again. And by this time we were much more proggy in our attitude. We'd learnt a piece of music which was going to be our party piece, and that was the Peer Gynt Suite. Once again, it's considering I started off hating classical music, I did like quite well some of the popular classics, and I liked the Peer Gynt Suite. And we took two pieces. We took Morning, da 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 da, that bit, and In the Hall of Mountain King, and made it into a sort of proggy 6-minute epic, which became our sort of party piece. It used to go down the storm on stage, and went down well. And I think we had a month off between the group breaking up and starting again. We rehearsed every day, to get our set together. And back set off again. Our first gig was in Southampton. I remember that.
Right. Wow. It's funny how the things that you do remember. Well, John helped Nigel with the songwriting duties too.
That's right. John was a bit of a songwriter. I didn't write much in those days at all. John came in and co-wrote several tracks, including the one called Tide, which was the last track of the album. There's once again a bit of a proggy sort of thing. But he brought a new dimension to the band, no doubt about it. He was great player and a good guy. Still in touch with him. So,
do you think it kind of worked out? It kind of balanced out that those two wrote, and you were the guitarist, singer. Maybe if you had written more, there might have been some, squabbling on how many songs you get to write on.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of worked out.
Maybe. Right. It has been known.
It has been known to happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, what made the Storthfield Country Club so comfortable for Octopus gigs?
Well, there were three places that we just built up a following. I was quite proud of the fact that we'd done this, because it was just, we used to pull people into these three venues. One was Storthfield Country Club in South Normanton. One was the Grey Topper in a place called Jacksdale, and the other was the Golden Diamond in Sutton and Ashfield. They're all quite close, but in the same area. But whenever we played those, we sell out, we stormed the place, and they just loved what we were doing. We were doing some of our own stuff. We used to do a couple of Yes covers. We used to do Neil Young. So that's what we got to. We used to do Beatles, but a couple of Beatles songs, but a bit more obscure. But we did Walrus. We used to do Walrus. Oh, okay. And Baby You're a Rich Man, which is quite obscure. But they just loved us. They really did. And we had this tremendous following. They used to follow us around, which was very rewarding. It's so nice to have people really dig what you do.
To have that following, and they knew what to expect when they came there. Too.
Yeah. And they knew all the numbers, and they'd request them,
Right. Restless Night came out, was released in April '71 on Penny Farthing, and it's really good that Larry promoted it. You hear about so many managers or record labels that don't promote, but it was
he did.
Good. He was good that he was behind it like that.
I've got to say, I give Larry his due. He also didn't interfere with the making of the album, apart from the fact he pulled off 2 tracks, which we didn't like. He knew him because one of them was linked to one of the other tracks. It's called Orchard Bloom, and it should have been linked to Restless Night, and it is on the re-release because I made sure it was back on.
That's the one I have. On Revola,
that's it. Yeah, that's I was involved with that.
That's the one.
And I made sure that I said I want this back, because I I had a white label of the album with these 2 tracks on. So they, the people at Revola took the record and recorded from the record those 2 tracks. And the other one was I Was So Young, Johnny Cook's.
I Was So Young. I was gonna mention that. I Was So Young, I think, is my favorite Octopus song.
It's a lovely song.
It is a lovely song. It's a beautiful song.
But Larry wanted more. Larry wanted to be more up tempo, and he put a couple of other tracks on instead. And it's a beautiful song. No, it's a great song, that is. But as I say, when I got involved with Revola, Cherry Red or whoever it is, we got them put back on again. So it's a very good compilation of the Cortinas Octopus career, if you like.
Right.
That album, it's done nicely. It's done very nicely.
Songs, Orchard Bloom and I Was So Young are 2 of my favorites. But on the album proper, the actual album, I like Rainchild.
Rainchild, yeah, that's a popular song. People like that.
That's a really good song too. Well, I understand that the band wasn't particularly fond of the album cover.
No. Well, we thought perhaps it was an ego thing. I don't know. We thought we should have our faces on there. But when Larry came up with this, what we thought was a monstrosity, we were quite horrified. And his argument was, he said, the cover will sell the album. A typical record boss sweeping statement, But it's of its time. It's of its time. And it must have cost a lot of money because it's one of those sort of it's a painting, isn't it? It's a painting. So
If you see and you don't know what kind of music's in there, it's going to be psychedelic when you see that.
Yeah. Yes. It's of the time. Yeah.
It is of the time. Well,
but we learn to accept it.
A few other songs on the album that I like: Summer.
Yeah.
Queen and the Pauper is a good one.
Yeah.
I Say, very Paul McCartney sounding.
Absolutely. That's Nigel singing that one. My brother singing that one. But we were the Beatle influence is always there. Even the way we recorded some of those things is like we were experimenting with. I mean, the Beatles had very limited things they could experiment with because the technology wasn't there, and I think they had the synth on the Abbey Road album a little bit, but they just had to make do what they had. And I can remember we put little recording tricks. We put chains on the piano on Rainchild. If you listen, you can hear it's a jangly piano, and there's chains across the strings on Rainchild. Okay. And another one, Johnny Cook's song, another song I like is Council Plans. We put the guitar through the organ Leslie. And Beatles did it, but it was just things to try and get a different sound. Yeah.
Well, I like that. Innovative, I would say.
Yeah.
About that.
And it was it was a very restricting. It was only a 4-track studio at Radio Luxembourg, so we were restricted what we could do. We had to think about how we recorded, bouncing tracks. But we couldn't put loads of stuff on because it just wasn't the tracks.
Right.
If you bounce too much, you open track to track, you lose quality. So it couldn't be done. But I think I'm quite proud of the album. Actually, I'm quite proud of it.
It's a good quality album, from start to finish, and especially with the extra tracks that they were left off.
Yeah.
So
well, it's sort of re-emerged in a way because there's a lot of interest in it still, to this day.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's funny because if you go on Amazon, there was one on sale on Amazon for about £18, and somebody must have bought it because the next thing I looked, you can only buy a second album now for £64, and the next one's £110. Ridiculous, I can't see anybody paying that.
Right.
Maybe they will. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I and I'm sure a lot of music fans find out about a lot of these groups that are a little more obscured from these various artists compilations, you know.
Yes. Yes.
You know, you hear Cherry Red is a good one.
Yes.
For releasing a lot of that stuff. That's how I find out about a lot of these bands and stuff. But
they do, because I know some of our tracks have turned up on quite a few compilations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They're good.
What about what were the reasons for Octopus calling it a day?
That was down to me again. I think it was down to me, yeah. I don't know, I just got fed up. We were doing the same old thing. We used to do, although we used to do these gigs, like we were talking about the 3 gigs we did and some other good gigs, we were a little bit of a rut. We used to do a lot of the working men's clubs in Sheffield, which weren't enjoyable at all. And I think we just needed the album. The album didn't do anything. We released the album hadn't done anything. And I think I was just a bit fed up. And I wasn't that happy with the drummer that we had at the time. It's drummer again. It was not so much his drumming, he was a good drummer, but attitude-wise, personality-wise, it was a problem. I'll be honest, be honest. Right. And I think just came to the point where I thought, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I just had enough. And so we decided, I think we gave ourselves 3 months or something, perhaps 6 months, I don't know, do it at the end of the year and work the book out, work the gigs out we got in the book, and then call it a day.
Right.
Which is a shame, really.
Yeah, I've heard that so much. When it becomes, it's not fun anymore.
Yes, that's what it is.
And it just becomes, like you said, a rigmarole, kind of a routine just to do it. Yeah. Why continue? Yeah.
That was it. That was basically it. I didn't know what I was going to do. No idea at all. But just where my head was at that time, and so we called it a day. Yeah. We had a wonderful final gig. Well, 2 final gigs really, because we did a final gig at Storfield Country Club, and it should hold 300. And there was about 600 people in there for that final gig. And it was very emotional. I can't deny it. It was very emotional up in South Normanton. And then we did 1 gig down in St Albans at the college, where we used to play quite regularly for our local people. But you wouldn't believe it, there was 2 coaches came down from Nottingham with all the people from Storfield who came down to see our final gig at St Albans as well. Very, very satisfying, very nice, very nice.
You had a loyal following.
Yes, we did. Even now I get, on Facebook and things, I get people saying, "Oh, I remember you, the good old days at Storfield," and something. "Oh, I always used to be there. You do I'm the Walrus and all that sort of thing," which is nice. It's nice.
Well, talk briefly about Kincade and how you became involved in that.
Well, one of those ridiculous things. It was the group finished in 72. I think it was January 72. And I had a couple of years, because I could sing and play guitar, I was making a living out of singing in pubs, just taking my acoustic guitar along with a little PA and singing songs. Not very satisfactory at all, some of it was okay, some of it wasn't. And then one day I get a phone call from a guy called Terry Noon at Larry Page's office and said, Larry's got this song that was done by John Carter.
John Carter.
And he said John doesn't want to go out and gig it. He said we had another guy doing it, a guy called John Kincade. No, a guy called John, he called him John Kincade. But he had a bit of a disagreement or something. He said, I want someone else to take over. Totally not music, anything to do with music at all. It's just to do with getting the commercial, getting TV shows done with somebody appearing on it. So he said, could you get a band together? And because we want you to go to Holland literally in 3 days' time. So I said, well, have you heard the song? So I'll send you it through, or you can come up and get it, or whatever. So we heard the song. I got Nigel together with this Rick, who was in. We didn't have a drummer, it didn't matter, we're only lip syncing to something we had nothing to do with anyway. And we get on a plane and we go over to Holland, and appeared on Dutch television, miming to Dreams of Ten a Penny, miming to John Carter's voice. And then we finished, and Terry Doon said after, he said, there may be some more. Would you want to do some more? I said, yeah, well, it's something to do.
Right.
So we did. We spent a year, actually just under a year, doing televisions in Spain, Germany, a lot in Germany. Did three different singles in Germany, and we also did a tour of Germany, which was a disaster because badly organised, totally badly organised. But we had a bit of fun. It was some fun moments, but it was a disaster, musically. And it's quite bizarre, really, because there we were singing to, or miming to something we had nothing to do with whatsoever. But that lasted a year.
Yeah, through 73. Well, did Kincade have a second life or continue after this? Because I know of a song called "Love Her Like a Lover."
No, I don't know.
1975.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it did. It carried on with some other guys, I think, did it, or somebody else did it.
It was John Knowles, I think.
He was the first guy who did it.
Okay. Oh, John.
He was the guy who we replaced, John Knowles.
Okay, John Knowles.
And I think, because I actually had a communication from a musician years later saying, I just heard about your story about Kincade. He said, we did it in 1970, might have been 75, I don't know, 74, 75. So there were several incarnations of people who didn't sing on the record anyway, so.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But that's show business.
That's how it all came to be and how it came to pass. That. We'll talk. We're coming close to I got a few more questions, but talk briefly about Guys and Dolls. And did you enjoy your time in that? With that? Absolutely.
Although it was very un-me. If you've seen any of the, I expect you've seen some of the Guys and Dolls stuff.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I went from long hair down to there, because my hair was curly, it was out here somewhere, looking like a scruff bag, into a white suit and a carnation. But it was a period when, after Kincade broke up or didn't happen or finished, I went back to singing in pubs, and I'd started going for auditions. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to several auditions which I wouldn't have minded getting, which I didn't get. And I was offered a couple which I really didn't want in the first place. So it was a bit difficult. I was actually offered a job in the band Mud. I don't know if you know Mud in America.
Oh,
yeah. Were they a hit?
Kind of
we knew them because in Octopus days, we were friends of them. They used to stay at Storfield with us. We were good mates. And I can't remember.
Tiger
I still
Feet,
taught one of them.
Wasn't there a song, Tiger Feet?
That's right, that's the one.
Yeah.
Tiger Feet.
Yeah.
And we knew the guys from the Octopus days. We were good mates. And Dave Mount, the drummer, came around my house one night and he said, would you join the band? And they were just beginning to make noises with their very first single. And I said no. God knows why. I said no to them, and then I joined Guys and Dolls. But I was also offered, no, I wasn't offered. I nearly got, I had an audition with a band called Magna Carta.
Oh, I love Magna Carta. I love their stuff. Airport Song. Are you familiar with that Airport Song?
I'm not familiar with much of this stuff because I know all I knew was they were a soft acoustic band.
Yeah, kind of.
And I went for an audition, and I think I got through the first round, but I failed at the last hurdle. I didn't get offered the job, which was a shame because I would quite like to have done that because I was quite. I could have done acoustic. I wouldn't mind have been an acoustic band.
They have some good material, but look it up on YouTube. Airport Song is one of my favorites. It's just really good.
And again, from Sublime to the Ridiculous, I also went for an audition with UFO.
Oh, was that because of Paul Raymond?
I don't, I can't remember much about it. All I know is I went for the audition and I knew I had to go. I knew I was way out of my depth. I was out of my depth. I'll be honest. I just knew I was out of my depth.
Right.
But because Paul Raymond in
Yes.
UFO?
Yes, UFO.
He was. Yeah. There was no connection there, particularly.
Plastic Penny and
yeah. But I went for it and I had to go. And but I knew I was out of my depth. I knew it wasn't right for me. And then this advert came up. 3 boys, 3 girls wanted for a major project. Major project being recording, television tours, finance, well financed. I quite liked the well financed bit.
Right. Oh yes.
It meant there could be we might earn some money. And how did it happen? Oh yes, and they said, I phoned them up. That's right, I phoned them up. They sent me a form to fill in, and at the time I was 29 years of age. I was a month off being 30, and they wanted boys and girls. And I thought, oh, boys, 30, and I thought, well, I'll just lie about my age. So I knocked 5 years off and said I was 24 on the piece of paper, which I still thought was pushing it, but I got invited to an audition, and when it came to the actual day, I was in Hatfield. It was 20 miles away. I had to drive to London in my beat-up Ford Cortina. The windscreen wipers didn't work properly, and I thought to myself, I don't really want this job. I said, I'm not going to go. And this is one point. There's one moment, one key moment in my life, which changed my life forever, because I phoned up. I thought, well, I'm not going to go. So I phoned up and said, I'm sorry, I can't make the audition tonight. I made some excuse. I don't know what the excuse was. I made some excuse. And I thought, normally they say, thank you very much, goodbye. But she didn't. For some reason, this woman said, Jenny said, oh, thank you for letting me know. She said, oh, hang on a minute. She said, we've had a cancellation for tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Can you make that? And I was so taken aback, I said, yes, I can do that. And I put the phone down. And I said to myself, why have you said yes? You don't want to go. And it got to the following day. It's still raining. I said, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. I don't want to go. But something at 4 o'clock, I thought, oh, what the hell? And I had an old, I put my acoustic guitar in the back of my car and drove up to London in the pouring rain with this dodgy windscreen wiper, cursing. And, to be honest, when you go for auditions, they are very nerve-wracking, and you get nervous. I wasn't a bit nervous. I was more annoyed that I was going. And I breathed in with my acoustic guitar, and I sang Leaving on a Jet Plane by John Denver.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, oh, that's great. So we're definitely interested. It's a 3-boy, 3-girl group. We'll let you know in a few days. And that was the audition on my own. Didn't see anybody else. 3 days later, I had a phone call to say, you've got the job. And I'm thinking to myself, what job? Who are we with? What music are we doing? What's happening? But I thought, well, I'll go along with it and see what happens. So they said, you're all meeting up at a restaurant in London on November the 8th, 1974. So I went along to the meal, met the others, 3 boys, 2 other guys and 3 girls. And I got on really well with one of the guys, a guy called Dominic, who would end up being my best mate. And that was it. But once again, it was a situation when halfway through the meal, you want some shock horror, don't you, and some bit of controversy. Halfway through the meal, they gave out these demos to us, and they said, "Oh, this is your first record." I said, "Great." I said, "When did we record it?" And they said, "No, this is your first record."
Oh.
I thought, oh, not again. I've just done Kincade. Not again. I'm a serious progressive musician, you know. And I thought, oh, not again. You know. And I went home and I played the song. Really not me at all. It's a song called A Whole Lot of Loving. But I thought, well, I'll go along and see what happens. I just go along with it. And we started getting together, meeting up. There was nothing happening for 2 months. We started getting together and getting to know each other. And then 2 months later, the record was released. Went to #2 in the charts.
Wow, isn't that something? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we went on television singing it live on Top of the Pops, because one act a week in those days had to play live with the orchestra. And because we were the sort of group we were, the 3 boys, 3 girls, a vocal group, it was us. So we had to sing it. The manager said, don't worry, he said, it'll never come out that you haven't sung on it, because he said, all the singers who sang on it are our friends. Ha! Ha! When we were #2 in the charts, we get a frantic call from our manager, said, oh God, you're not going to believe the Daily Mirror, you didn't sing on the record. 2 of the girls had gone to the papers and said, you didn't sing on the record. And I thought, oh, that's it, you know. Finished. But the funny thing about it was, it came out in the Daily Mirror, our paper, that we hadn't sung on the record. And that's the last I heard of it. It almost disappeared after about a week. It wasn't used anymore. And got a career out of it for 11 years. You know, stayed 11 years. You know, so.
Yeah, a long time. You know what?
And I had some, you know, I've got to say, musically, I always struggle with it. I can't deny that, and I've made no bones about that in the past. Right. But we had a great time, some great experiences, and I had my little 15 minutes of fame, if you like, and worked with some incredible work with Frank Sinatra. Right. Did a week of concerts with Frank Sinatra, so there were pluses. And also, as I said, if that Jenny hadn't said, "Can you come the following night?" Where would my life have gone? I wouldn't have been sitting here talking to you now with my wife in there, because I would have met my wife.
You know, it's interesting how one little decision, or timing is always so important.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So one day or one moment, you know, is changed. It can just alter your whole destiny. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that something? Well, I know more people, I think, are familiar with you and Guys and Dolls than your earlier stuff, and I'm just the opposite, you know.
Yeah.
Octopus.
Well, this depends who you talk to, really, because you've still got a big fan base for Guys and Dolls, but there's a lot of people, especially in this area. Remember the Cortinas more than anything else, because we were a good little local band with a local following, you know. And it was one of those situations. There was only about 3 or 4 local bands when the Cortinas were going. Yeah. And you know, we had people who followed us around then. So but funny old life I've led, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is. You know, I wanted to say, I'm looking outside right now. We have a severe thunderstorm warning. And so can you see my face?
Yes.
It's very dark. Have you noticed that? It's gotten very dark.
Well, you got you're fine, but the background's very dark.
Yes, the background is very dark.
I can still see you.
The reason is, in this room, if I have the overhead light on, it's too much glare.
Yeah.
So I just open the blinds to the window, and normally it's sunny. So, you know, I get the sunshine coming in, but I just got that warning, so I don't want it to be disconnected. But we'll continue. I just had a couple of other questions.
Yeah. All right.
Who's Paul David?
Well, it's me. Once again, it was. This is going back to the 80s now. I went into publishing with Everyday Music. I've spent 18 months publishing, but I had the idea when the film Peggy Sue Got Married came out. I thought, it's a song I always liked, the Buddy Holly song, Peggy Sue Got Married. I thought, well, why don't I try and do a cover and sort of cash in on the film. So I actually recorded it, and I got a deal with Spartan Records. And they said, what's your name? Paul Griggs. He said, well, that's not a very stagey name. So can we change your name? So I said, well, if you want to. I said, my second name's David. How about Paul David? Simple as that, really. So I'm Paul David Griggs. And for a while, I kept it when I went and did live shows for a while. Well, for the last 25 years, I think it was. Went out as Paul David because Griggs is a bit not very stage name. But I've gone back to Griggs now. Yeah.
Go ahead and do your skiffle.
Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I just happen to have a guitar here.
Okay.
I'm going to do, you know what skiffle is? Skiffle is old, well, Lonnie Donegan's skiffle was old Woody Guthrie and Lead Belly songs, which he put to his own way. So I've mucked around with these for years, and I still sing them for myself. And here's a little bit of the old Midnight Special, which is a prison song. Wake up early in the morning, hear the ding-dong ring. Go walking to the table, you see the same damn thing, like a booker on the table. Nothing in my pan, but if I complain about it, I get in trouble with the man. Let the midnight special shine its light on me. Let the midnight special shine its silver light on me. If you ever go to Houston, well, you better walk right. Well, you better not stagger, and you better not fight, cause the sheriff will arrest you and carry you down. And if the jury finds you guilty, you pay attention, you better let the midnight special shine its light on me. Let the midnight special shine its silver loving light on me. Here comes Miss Rosie, I don't know what you know. Well, I can tell by her apron and the dress she wore, umbrella on her shoulder, piece of paper in her hand. While she looked to my captain, she reached my man. Let the midnight special shine its light on me. Let the midnight special shine its silver loving light on me. I've done my time, boy, her holler and crying. But if any's gonna call me, then I'll be writing another line on the midnight special. Shine its light on me. Let the midnight special shine its silver loving light on me.
All right. Very nice. Very nice.
I don't know what that sounds like. It'd probably be an awful sound, is it?
No, it's not.
It's all right.
Yes, it's all right. It's very all right. I want to thank you again for your time.
You're very, very welcome.
And for sharing so much with us and recollecting so much.
Yeah.
And the best of luck. What's on the immediate horizon for Paul?
Oh, I don't do much these days at all. I've done a few little gigs in the village now and again. When the Jubilee, because the Queen's Jubilee came out, I did a couple of gigs. We have a village green out front of my house. I've done a couple of gigs out there. I occasionally play at elderly care homes. Oh. So I do those occasionally. But apart from that, I muck around in I've got a little, this is my little studio. I've got a little 16-track studio here. Muck around in here. I just enjoy myself, you know. I've stopped gigging seriously about 5 years ago, you know, so I just do it for the fun these days. And I love sitting here with my acoustic, playing things like that, doing a bit of noise on you. Enjoy.
Well, I enjoy it, and I think some of the viewers will as well. So thank you again, and best of luck in all your future endeavors and in life. Okay.
Thank you, and the same to you, Greg. Thanks very much indeed. And
right.
When will I be able to see this?
It's probably going to be at least a week or so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I will let you know once I've.
Oh, right, lovely.
You know, and once it's live, I'll send you a link.
Yeah. I'll put it out to all my people as well on Facebook.
I was going to say, you tell everybody and their relatives and their friends and their pets and
their greengrocers and the taxman.
Yes, everybody that they come in contact with.
Yeah.
Yes, and do that. So thank you again, Paul.
No, yeah, thanks, Greg, and I hope you survived the thunderstorm.
Yes, I hope so too. I hope we don't have an outage, but thank you again, Paul.
Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.